takes place in Bihar. About 4 or 5 years ago, there was an outbreak of communal rioting, that is, rioting between Muslims and Hindus. In this case, you read about it in the news. If you still read the news, one of my hopes for this course is that you'll stop doing that unhealthy habit. Anyway, if you read about it in the commercial mass media, you read that this was, neighbors who had seething with violence for a long time, had risen up against one another. It was terrible. But I heard a talk from a woman who works with a peace organization, nonviolence organization, in the north of India. She's from Gujarat, which is Gandhi's home state. Her name was Nirmala Deshpande, and she came from this area where they had rushed to see what they could do, and she told us two things. She said, first of all, do not believe what you're reading in the papers. I said, hey, no problem. I haven't done that since I was 18. Secondly, she said, let me tell you what actually went on in those villages, which you will never hear in the mass media. First of all, this was not neighbors. These were mobs who were instigated to do this by the central government. The GOI, Government of India these days, has been in the control of a party which is a very secular, sectarian, pro-troublemaking. I know it sounds like I'm describing another country, but this is true in India also. And they actually instigated these mobs and furnished them with these high-pressure gas canisters and stuff to do this mayhem. So these are basically, quote, Hindu, unquote, mobs. They come sweeping into these little villages, they're agricultural villages. And because they're agricultural villages, most of the men are out in the fields when these ruffians arrive. And so it's just the women and some of the Muslim men, because Muslims tend to be artisans rather than farmers. And immediately, without any preparation, without discussing it ahead of time, they had no idea this was going to happen. Immediately, they took their Muslim neighbors into their home to hide them. Okay? Well, hide is a euphemism because most of these houses are a single room. So the Muslim man comes into the house and the woman of the house shoos him under the puja table, under the altar. So immediately you have this wonderful situation where you have the statue of Ganesha, or, I don't know, Krishna or something like that, and these Muslims are cowering underneath it. Okay, now here's where we get to the point of our story for our purposes. Home after home, the same procedure was repeated. The mob would come up to the door, the woman would be standing there in the doorway, and the mob would say, we think you're hiding a Muslim in there. And immediately the woman of the house would say, yes, I am. And it would be a moment of shock, and they would say, well, we want him out of there. And the woman would say, first kill me, then you may enter. And the mob would turn around and go. So they saved hundreds and hundreds of lives by doing this. And again, this was people who, if you stopped them on the street corner and said, what is nonviolence? How do you do it? They probably would not have been able to articulate anything. But I'm going to say, in my simple-minded mode here, that you had a very negative situation, very negative. I'm saying it's Bihar, it might have been Gujarat, but that's not material for us. And these women introduced positive energy into a negative situation, and the thing was drastically improved. So, it was improved in so many ways. I mean, you can just imagine what the relationship was like in those villages between the Hindus and Muslims now that these Hindu wives have risked their lives to save those men. You can imagine the beneficial impact that it had on those mobs who were being told, these people are going to welcome you as liberators. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's the wrong conflict. I got confused there for a minute. I was going to say, these Hindus are going to welcome you in. They've been meaning to get rid of their Muslim neighbors. And they go in there believing that violence is invincible. They have much more power than the women have. The women are unarmed. They have all these gas canisters. They're enraged. So they go in there fully expecting to commit murder and get away with it. They have this complete shock of a type of resistance that they did not expect. And they go away thinking. So for everyone in the situation, obviously the Muslim men who got saved, but everyone involved, the women who have a new sense of their own power, the mobs who have a different sense of what violence can and cannot achieve, situation of communal rioting in general, because these things, as we know, have a tendency to spread. Bad things spread, become worse. Good things spread, become better. So for everyone, there's a huge improvement in the situation. And you look at this model, and you look at the world around